We tend to think of slavery as one of the low points of colonial history, an offence against humanity that we abolished in the 18th century. Few realize that real slavery is secretly flourishing as never before. Today the slaves are well hidden, but as Professor Kevin Bales, an expert in modern-day slavery, explained, the essential elements are unchanged.
Slavery is what slavery has always been. It's about one person completely controlling another person using violence and then exploiting them economically, paying them nothing. That's what slavery is about.
From British-built castles like this on the coast of West Africa, around 13 million people were shipped across the Atlantic during the 400 years of the slave trade. Professor Bales estimates that the growth of the global economy means that at least twice that number are now enslaved around the world.
In the old days, slaves were expensive. You kept them for their whole life. You took care of them. Today, they're cheap. There's a glut of slaves, and when you've used them, you throw them away if you don't want them anymore. They're disposable. They're working on the lower end of the economic ladder. It tends to be raw materials, agriculture, basic stuff that feeds into the local economy. But all over the world, there are also slaves making things that feed into the world economy. Things like cotton, sugar, clothing, even the kind of bangles and rings and glassware, and even fireworks that you might end up buying could well have been made by slave labor in the developing world.
In the course of the 20th century, many African nations were forced to make money for their European masters by growing cash crops like cotton, coffee and cocoa. Today, the money still flows north as the profits from cash crops are used to pay interest on international debt. Once these commodities enter the global market, it's almost impossible to trace the true origins of the food and clothing in our shops.
One of the difficulties for consumers is the fact that if we're wearing a cotton shirt, there's a good chance that no slavery went into sewing that shirt. But what about when the cloth for the shirt was actually woven? There's a possibility that slave labor might have been used in the mill. There's even a greater chance that slavery might have been used in the fields to grow the cotton before it's made into cloth. And that's also very difficult to monitor. I mean, how can we check every single farm where every single bit of cotton comes from before it reaches a mill, before it reaches a factory, before it reaches a retailer, before it reaches us? That's one of the most difficult things about trying to trace out how slave-made goods reach our lives.
Here in the Ivory Coast, the existence of slavery on cotton plantations has been established by UNICEF. But we were travelling in search of slaves in the country's biggest cash crop, cocoa. The Ivory Coast produces nearly half the world's supply, over 100 million tons of cocoa grown on thousands of small plantations. We'd heard rumours that young men were being trafficked from neighbouring Mali to work on these plantations as slaves. Nobody had documented this before, yet the slaves were disturbingly easy to find.
There's nothing to stop these young men leaving the plantation, except that they've been trafficked 300 miles from home. They're penniless, and they have no idea where they are. Paid nothing, unable to leave, and totally controlled by the farmer, these men are not simply exploited, they are modern-day slaves. They agreed to talk to us while their master was away at market.
How long have you been working on this plantation?
Sanjala, Sankalinike. Yeah.
And how much money have you been paid for your work?
What for the? Minkosan Amani Sawad Dinamo on Yadonko. Amadi Contesara Amadico for Hedu, Intisaka, and Laventu, were on the Yadu. To say Alemadi. Niga Afoko Agadi Aletiso. Niga Barakaram Tisoka already. Niduma Tui. Ora di cosa non si fa, la forza la leva tu a tagli. Avevamo delle tagli sulla cauca. Era avevamo buona alla drone vado, note a mangiare, nega baracche un borracho come guardi nega baracche warma però. Avevamo alla drone vado.
And do you find the work on the plantation easy or hard?
Akajuke. Mo pese ka bara man ka manjuwa. Akajuku. Asik mami tak kira itu sih kau kamu juga. Anu malam besi kau enggak kaju. Mana kita kaju.
Sekian sih miang ambo ya karena luar kota favelalo. Kontang tu sih.
Kau kula. Ang kira jangan kau kula lu cek. Mak hui kau ang hui dah kau kula jangan.
Once the cocoa pods have been harvested, the beans are scooped out and dried before being packed for sale. Although cocoa is grown in dozens of countries around the world, the Ivory Coast is by far the biggest producer. Last year, the UK directly imported over £50 million worth of Ivoirian cocoa to satisfy our appetite for some of the biggest chocolate eaters in the world. The average person in Britain munches through the equivalent of over 200 bars of chocolate a year.
Since many of the plantation workers are from Mali, we wanted to talk to Abdul Mako, one of the Malinese consuls in the Ivory Coast. He invited us to his home to meet 19 young men who had recently been freed from slavery on a cocoa plantation.
Bon, voici les enfants dont on vous a parlé. Ils sont au nombre de 19. On vient de les libérer avec l'appui des autorités ivoiriennes. Là, ces jeunes vivaient un véritable esclavage. Ils travaillaient à l'aube très tôt le matin et ils le finissaient après le crépuscule. Aujourd'hui, ils font bon mine parce que ils ont demandé à ce qu'ils soient coiffés, sinon ils faisaient beaucoup plus pitié.
Pourquoi est-il malade?
En fait, il est malade parce que, et lui, en fait, il vient d'arriver. Il n'a que 6 mois. Donc, il était à une période de dressage, en fait. Malheureusement pour lui, son corps ne peut pas supporter les coups.
After one of the young men finally managed to escape, the consul led a raid on the plantation to liberate those still enslaved.
Le tout s'était pratiquement isolé du monde entier. Et il s'était méconnaissable quand on nous a trouvés. Le tout s'est passé comme s'il sortait d'un autre monde. À partir de 20h, 20h30, la cabane est bouclée par un d'entre eux qui est considéré comme le chef. Et chacun rentre dans la cabane avec une vieille boîte de nido dans laquelle il doit uriner. Il n'est pas question de sortir la nuit pour uriner. Quand il fuit, il doit obligatoirement être rattrapé par leurs camarades. Quand il est rattrapé, il est battu matin et soir pendant les premiers jours. Et quand il n'en peut plus, on le laisse. Car lorsque ses plaies sont cicatrisées, on le remet dans le lot pour recommencer le travail. Et on le surveille, on veille sur lui, jusqu'à ce qu'il se ramollisse, qu'il accepte son sort et ses conditions.
The consul has arranged for the boys to go home to Mali, to be reunited with families that may have given up hope of ever seeing them again. For now, they are staying at Consul Mako's home, beginning to recover from years of psychological as well as physical torture.
tanya anda jeni ale kanta anta kume furon nang ku bara de me ba jonya la furula ba tu takana ata so wa du fe bon rata mo ko takana grupe nyonga patra ma pasi ta ko ni don na boli bon na le tigi sorla abena faka serenya fana ba do na ande se ka bori ni fana borla ta yoro ti fe e ba ta fa nga ba ni mine ni fana na mine abena ibu ma abe siriki bugo sisa ka datu bidalai kumna ka bulu siriki ka sara doba bugo la kofe lu ba fa ka bugo bita de bugo ka proof lies ka foti ka bugo how long would they be for? Ama bugo chien fla wula fe ani sokoma
ka bugo choko dumala ba
How old is this child?
He's 18 now.
18 now. Your body is covered in scars. Can you tell us what happened to you?
We anta kana bla barla bo bara na gan na enforce sa barake mbura sisa mbura mge utala mine kana mbo sisa
abwala minga bana ni bara digla nyongona atesela atesika tamatuni allala tiga sero shemu tala katanta kana ni far tiga afarba tiga ka jur bo bola ni abe bara ka jur ni mina ke don dumgo ba dumu ka don na ba tur ka fen dudu abana ba ka tu bara la.
In the time that you were working on the plantation, was anybody killed like this?
O ka bo ka fa be bana ni do bola na amadimna ka ke atesika fu ke abata ka kana ka tabla ka ta fanga fa talabla
Tatara bara.
ba foti kwale talabla tayi.
Was anybody here paid any money for their work?
Ngona baraka utagata warna.
And how many years were you working for?
Inga ka sanyi loro in kalworo talebe banu.
When you think back on what you've had to do for these last 5 years, what does it make you feel?
Ani memiri lalila nta dushu ben dimi kono na kwa aben dimi ke kuma shama jigin ta dushu na kusuranti siga be.
The cocoa goes into making chocolate. Have you ever tasted chocolate?
Mali do dum lungre.
In the rest of the world, millions and millions of people eat chocolate. What would you tell those people?
Nimba feka kuma fo ma sisa oluminu ma sanga ta dum sisa ni segala la kasronta fu sura la ka dum bena olu le doya ba fo olu fe olu benta bashi le dum na ni be segala la kasronta to no sura la olu be la ba kana olu bena le sanga ta dum kasro me baraka min falete fu sura fu dine fe mo olu le doya ka fu fe benta bashi le dum na.
Consul Mako told us how to find the farmer who had enslaved these men. More than 3 hours from the nearest road, his plantation is typical of the tens of thousands in the Ivory Coast, remote and inaccessible.
It's breaking up. Good.
We set off in search of a slave master.
So this is it. This is where the father kept the 19 children. The cocoa plantation of an Ivory Coast slave master. 3 days' walk from the nearest police station, the farmer here feels he is beyond the reach of the law. But Yo Jorman welcomed us to his 500-acre plantation and was remarkably frank about how he and other farmers get their slaves.
We be koroma we stand wabambe we wabambe shomo wabam be kawe makwa.
The young men we've met who worked here said you used to beat them, and we've seen their scars.
Ke pele china bele bege be pele bena ke wonjang wole jo ni jo lan le be kumor pele wol wara pini. Belewa kuma le ma tifal telewa mona kwa seli pani belewa vamele ni donc bele siba seli pa falo ma pele ka gbana bara mo belebe falo ya chen kwa ma pele donc kena bejo wi bara e ni songwa bara me pele bara le o fansi ka tare abesu kuma mitina na bam dapie donc wolba lungo liban kan apele tuma le be mon piano.
Miles from any other settlements, the lock on the door of the dormitory where the boys used to sleep seemed incongruous. The few possessions that the boys had left behind in the rush of their liberation had recently been dumped.
Were the workers free to leave whenever they wanted to?
Oui. Be manasye be ina tay. Mais bele be selimpa pele wajo be kurna gbene foyona. Uyama uba fele. Donc voilà le monde là, oui bah moi va perdre une.
With almost half the world's cocoa coming from the Ivory Coast, we wanted to know what proportion of that cocoa is tainted with slavery and violence. Diaby Dembele has been working in and around the cocoa plantations for nearly 20 years.
Partout tu trouves que les enfants ils sont pendant 10, tu vas dire que les planteurs ils frappent.
Quel est le plus âgé esclave que vous avez trouvé?
Le plus âgé ça commence à 20 ans, si c'est trop à 25 ans. Chaque matin, il y a un plaignant qui vient disant que j'ai travaillé dans telle plantation, je n'ai pas payé et j'étais frappé avec les, comment on appelle, les planteurs. Chaque matin on a cet jugement en notre amical. En ce cas, souvent on se rencontre à ce problème-là. Parce que souvent on se rencontre, on convoque les planteurs. Pourquoi tu peux utiliser le petit qui n'a pas pu payer? Il dit mon prédit est impayé, bas prix. Bon, on n'a pas trouvé bon prix cette année, c'est pour cela, on a mon compte que je n'ai pas pu payer les enfants.
À votre avis, quel est le pourcentage de plantations en Côte d'Ivoire où il y a des esclaves?
Moi, mon expérience en tant que 17 ans, chef d'amical, si on étude sur 100% plantation ivoirienne, il faut minimum, faut compter 90% plantation ivoirienne que ça existe, cet esclavage.
Slavery on at least 90% of plantations. That means 2/5 of the world's cocoa is tainted with slavery. And as more and more farmers can't afford to pay their workers, slavery will spread.
The world price of cocoa has been steadily falling for the last 15 years. Yet as the price farmers get for what they grow has gone down, the price we pay for chocolate has gone up. Until last year, the price farmers got for their cocoa was guaranteed by the government. But the World Bank felt farmers were being cheated and believed they'd do better dealing directly with the cocoa buyers. So the World Bank made the government scrap the price guarantee system for the Ivory Coast to qualify for partial debt relief. Since then, the cocoa price has plummeted, reaching a record low this February. Farmers now get less than ever before for their cocoa.
One of the ways they can deal with the squeeze that puts on them, the pressure that puts on them, is to pay even less for the labor they use in the fields, in the plantations. Or, if they're unscrupulous, to enslave that labor. And the situation of structural adjustment has, in a sense, put the pressure on the farmers to use slave labor to produce cocoa.